What's going on? What's going on? We're live. Um, we got a few things to talk about today. Just gonna try to, get some conversations in here more than anything. I'll give you my takes on what I have up here as well, but more so want conversations on it. So the first topic that we have is surveillance states could be great, which thought about it yesterday as my wife and I were talking about Black Mirror, and yeah, they could be really, really good. I'm pro government, pro Great Reset, and Christians believe in debt forgiveness. So just want to have some conversation with some people today, hopefully, whether it be in the comment section or people wanting to come up and talk. Either way is fine. And later today, we will be doing the MOT Ohio stream for the first time at 4. So be sure to check that out. The channel is MOT_Ohio on TikTok, and then it will be on the same YouTube page and everything else. So the Black Mirror episode that sparked this realization for me was where was the one where this woman was accused of murder, and they were able to pin the murder on her via memory tracing technology, something like that. So they put something underneath her nose, or something underneath your nose in general, because allegedly the smell is the strongest scent to bring back the memory. It's not Christian to pay for others' loans. It's stupidity. It is Christian. You obviously know nothing what you're talking about. God says to have jubilees every 50 years to forgive your debts. That is the prayer that Jesus taught us as well. Anyway, so Black Mirror episode, sniff the thing, memory comes back, and then they're able to see what happened. But it was only for like a few hours, because my biggest critique against it was, how would that be reliable, say, if it's 10 years ago, right? Because your memory is poor after 10 years. Absolutely not. You're alone, your issue, not mine. I mean, if you call yourself a Christian, then you don't know what the hell you believe in then, because that's literally in the Bible several times. It's the prayer Jesus taught us. It's also in the Old Testament, how God said to forgive the debts and free the slaves. So, you know, your loan that you took out is your responsibility, nobody else's. Explain the Great Reset. Okay, yeah. So, you support reset button. Don't push that ish, man. What's wrong with you? Yeah, I'll get into it. So I was just going over the surveillance state could be good. So tracing your memory, right? So in this Black Mirror episode, they traced her memory, found that she did all these things. And my biggest gripe against it, because I didn't realize this, was that they're only doing it for a few hours after the event, up to like 24 hours of said event. But they won't do it after multiple years, because after multiple years, your memory is distorted. It can't be relied upon. So the technology to pull back memories, I think, actually would make it better. The technology to pull back memories would make society better. It would make people have to be honest. And you shouldn't have anything that you're afraid of anyway. And also, they're not going to come and trace your memory back if you didn't do anything illegal or if you weren't a part of anything. But if you did witness something, what's wrong with having a perfect reaccount of the memory that you saw, or the memory that you have for said event? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Additionally, everybody is accepting a surveillance state as we're on TikTok right now, right? Because they're surveilling us. They're Facebook, Twitter, all these different places are. And yeah, no, I have read 1984, which is why I specified it could be great. It could be great. So, and I also take a very religious point of view from this as well. In Christianity, we talk about Neuralink has helped people in Germany with ALS, though, but not good for everyone. Yeah, for sure. Got somebody that wants to hop in here. Let them hop in, and then who knows, maybe we'll pick up where we left off with the conversation. What's going on?
Oh, I just joined, and what do you mean by Great Reset?
Yeah.
What is that?
So do you know what the Great Reset is?
No idea. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so It is a plan to restructure our current humanity. The goal is to restructure political, economical, and social institutions. One of the ways that they want to do this is by implementing smart cities. They want a one world government and a new economic system. The economic system would favor digital currency, but it wouldn't be the only form of currency. You wouldn't be completely cashless. It would introduce blockchain technology. It would introduce the Internet of Things, the Internet of Bodies, which the Internet of Bodies would be, I guess, leading into transhumanism. So that's the Great Reset in which they, the elite, Klaus Schwabs, are proposing. But I have a different view on a reset, and I do think it will be a great reset, not in the sense that it's going to be very, very good, but in the sense that it's going to be major, it's going to be big.
All right. So besides just the different wording for liberal world order.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it that for sure.
Just wanted to hop on and ask what the hell that was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you for explaining it to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's going to be horrible. Yeah, well, their plans fail all the time. Oh, they equals world economic. It's one of them. Not him purging, plugging his Cash App. If this dude thinks the government and elite care about him, you really want this? No, I don't want all. I mean, I think that there'll be some good aspects of it. I think that the surveillance state won't necessarily be as bad as people portray it to be. You'll probably be able to capture a lot of criminals faster, more efficiently than we currently do. If you look at the amount of people that we catch that commit murders every year, it's dwindled tremendously since like the 1960s. If it's done correctly, yeah. A one world government under Jesus Christ is the one. Same, Mac Dave. That's the other thing too. It's an interesting world we live in because I am opposed to the earthly one world government under Satan, but obviously I'm not opposed to the one world government under Christ. It's like the Patriot Act. It is only used for good. So silly. Never said that. Never said that once. I said it could be used for good. Could be great. Because of the First Amendment. Okay. They're not brain dead tanks, actually. They're tanks you probably haven't heard of before because you're so programmed to think that these things I'm telling you are bad, and you only heard them from the evil, wicked people. So, why would government historically? What about historically kill people? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I mean, what do you mean? People kill people all the time. They don't need governments to do that. Who decides what is the word of Christ? Well, God, right? I wouldn't hold my breath for earthly political GRP to have a righteous gov, though. No, but I'm not against government. Transhumanism, I'm not pro-transhumanism. So we can trust the gov. Not entirely, no. I mean, I think it's reasonable to be suspicious of people with power, especially people like the government. So I'm not just saying blindly trust them, but there's a whole philosophical discussion of where the government becomes legit and illegitimate. However, I don't believe in rebellion either way. But I believe that if you're living a moral life and not causing any trouble within your society, you'll be fine. That's usually how it goes. How you fairy ever forget? Okay. Yes, you blindly trust the government. No, I don't actually. You've obviously never listened to any of my streams. They're talking about mechanical transhumanism. Yes, small gov because all people are evil and wicked. I don't believe that, Bobby. I don't think the size of the government really matters. I believe it's the people inside of the government that really matter. But give gov to tell you what is moral? No, not at all. The government doesn't determine morality. Real Christians believe in debt forgiveness. People throwing a fit are cosplaying Christians. Exactly, Cam. I mean, it's literally in the Bible, and it's literally the first prayer Jesus teaches us. The media is why we are arguing. Fact. If you're advocating this stuff, you have something wrong with you, dude. Hey, Brad, why don't you ask me to specify instead of just assuming? You're the programmed sheep here because you see these words. And that's my whole point by making these kind of topics is to expose the right dum-dums, the right-wing dum-dums who think they're truthers and think they're not programmed and think that they're not in the matrix. But then they see these words and they automatically get triggered because they're so programmed, as opposed to, it could be great. How could it be great? And actually inquiring. Yeah, and it's also pro-free slavery too, the sweet one. You know, the Bible was a huge game changer for slavery back in the day. Fact. It improved it tremendously, and it led us to the point where we are today. Fact. If we have politicians, it would be helpful if they could be monitored by people 24/7 without exceptions. Maybe. What do you mean by surveillance state? Yeah, so currently we have a surveillance state in a way, right? Because these private companies are being able to monitor our actions, what we're searching, what we're doing, what we're purchasing. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing because it can tell you exactly where the society is morally, right? So, for instance, the reason Silicon Valley got away with pushing the corn and the LGBT, the whole thing, is because they realized everybody in the Bible Belt was not real Christians because they were watching cornos, searching for these disgusting, degenerate things and being straight up hypocrites. So they were able to change society. Well, now imagine the reverse is true. Imagine the reverse is true, where you're seeing that, everybody's becoming extremely moral. Nobody's watching the degenerate things. And if they are, it'd be easy to get them out of society or ban that said, be easier to ban that kind of content as well. Additionally, if you go back to the memory, yes, exactly, which Mike Dave is like explaining part of the ways that it improved slavery back in the day. It was taking steps to correct it all the way. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, man, you think the surveillance state could be great?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Yeah, so I don't know if you just heard anything I just said. I was actually just answering somebody else's question that was the same one as yours. So, for instance, the Silicon Valley elites, and to preface this, I am the furthest thing that you will find from some libtard. I'm a pro-monarchist. I want a monarchy. I want Christianity to be the ruling religion over the United States, so you can consider me to be probably alt-right. Now, as far as the surveillance states, could be good, could be great. Well, if we take a look at the Silicon Valley elites, all they're doing and the only reason they're able to push the bullshit that they're able to push is because they realize through surveillance that most people are hypocritical, immoral bastards, especially those in the Bible Belt who claim to be pro-Christ and anti-degeneracy, when in reality, they're like some of the most secret supporters for like corn, if you catch my drift, and other degenerate behaviors that now we can all see online. So I think that the surveillance state is good in the sense that it will show morality and show immorality and where the society is heading. And so if you were able to reverse that, say somebody who is an extreme degenerate, they like to watch corn, they're trying to get their drugs or alcohol, whatever it is, to an extent, right? Like if they're an alcoholic, things like that, a drug addict, you'd be able to track them and you'd be able to prevent that from taking place. And the same thing with...
How would that prevent that from taking place?
Well, yeah, because I mean, you can monitor their behaviors. And so you can pinpoint the location.
Who's monitoring the behaviors?
Yeah, so it's obviously going to be the controllers, right? It's obviously going to be the government.
Want the controllers to monitor the behaviors?
They already do.
Through big tech, you're saying?
Yeah, this has always been the case with government. Yes.
I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just like...
Yeah, I know. I understand.
I'm trying to see...
Yeah, so I'm answering your question. So yes, the controllers in society have always been the government, have always been the financial elite.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely surveilling us now. My problem with surveillance, and this is just my opinion. I've been to China, and I see how they use the surveillance state to bully people into behavior. And if you read 1984, I think that's a clear example of how it could be abused.
Yes.
So I don't know, man.
I'm with you.
I'm definitely not on the page with you on that one, bro. But I kind of see where you're going with it, and it's an interesting take to me. It kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I know. Which is, thank you for actually being genuine in your inquiry, because I'm just getting comments of people assuming my position, which I'm trying to explain to them is actually rather unique, and you probably haven't heard something similar to this before, because it's not what's promoted when it comes to people being in favor of the surveillance state. And I think it's healthy to have a suspicion of your controllers, if you will, of the people that are in power, but they're not really even in control of you.
Who's going to surveil them? Who's
going to surveil
the surveillance?
That's a really good question. So this is why I'm in favor of the unification of church and state. Because the church's position ideally should be to morally observe and monitor the government to make sure bills that they pass are not in opposition of God, the ultimate authority of morality.
I don't know, man. I'm iffy on the church merging with state. I can see both sides of that.
Yep, me too.
But I'm iffy on it, because it seems to me like you look at the Islamic countries, it seems like the radical element sometimes can take hold when you let religion dictate what the people do, like with an iron fist,
Well, I will say this. That argument goes both ways, though. So it's not just when religious powers get control over the government, they become radical. I mean, look at our government is by and large, a lot of people are atheist. A lot of people are agnostic. A lot of people have no affiliation with religion whatsoever. And our government has become extremely radical. So it doesn't require religion to be radical. And if you look at the Middle East, I'd say that they have a lot more morality than the United States does. A lot of their positions are misunderstood greatly, especially the Taliban. I mean, the history of the Taliban, how they were started. This is a fact, actually. They were started because they went to rescue some young girl who was kidnapped by SEX traffickers, and then they hired the people who did that. The people wanted the guys who started the Taliban, who rescued the kidnapped girl, to go and break up these PODOS rings. And that's what they did. And so that's how the Taliban got their start. And then it's been subverted by our PEDO elites.
The Taliban is pro-pedo shit, though.
They're not, actually. That's false. So here's what happened.
Radical Islamists.
No,
Islam is pro-pedo.
No,
it just is.
Nope. So you don't know what you're talking about. And that's okay.
The radical elements
listen to me.
Iran.
No.
They have 9-year-old marriages.
Yeah, so you don't know.
They have child brides. They have sex traffickers. You're out of your mind if you think that the Taliban's the fucking good guys, bro. But I gotta go, man. You're entitled to your belief. Very interesting, man. Very interesting stuff, bro. Good conversation.
All right, take care. So yeah, that is not true at all. What actually happened as the United States went to Afghanistan, went to Iran, and freed all the PEDOs. Fact. They freed them. They freed them. The United States government freed them. And the Taliban were the one fighting them. And this is so funny to me because everybody's not going to accept this position here, but they're going to believe what the media has been telling them. The same media and the same people who are pushing the surveillance state, which you are so anti of. Your college debt, your problem. I paid every bill myself. Okay, highway boomer. Also, I forgot to say the government doesn't care about you. It doesn't matter because you have more power than the government because you're the one that the people make up the government. And so the government is just a tool. So based on your morality, the society's morality will determine how the government reacts. Bush gave us a surveillance state with the Patriot Act. Yeah, but I mean, one could argue the surveillance state has always been with us, especially if they believe in God. I am so happy I'm not American. Well, good for you. We're happy as well. I'll speak on the behalf of Americans. We're happy you're not American either. Someone needs to remind the government that they are a tool. Yeah, so just live a better life. Stop being so dependent on what they do. The Christian God. Bye, bro. Hope you find your way off the fascist bootlicker pipeline. Okay. You're way off, dude. Explain it to me. Surveillance state can be a lot of things. China is one. Yeah, but not all of China's in a surveillance state either. It's the major cities. The people who bring up China don't even understand China, have never read Chinese history. You have no idea what the Great Reset even is. I do, and I've explained it numerous times. I guarantee you, what is your name? Freak Tweaker. I am way further down the rabbit hole than you are, my man. Communist laughingstock. Definitely not a commie. I think that communism is one of the most stupid and evil ideologies the world has ever produced. Good way to try to get them spun up. Okay. You think that they're going to stop at surveillance to stop crimes? Ideally, yes. Not you to put money in my bank to pay. You don't even understand how the economy works, highway boomer. What is communism? Well, it's very simple. It's the elimination of classism. And it's the acquiring of all the properties and everything under the state, essentially. But there is no state in communism. There's just the people in communism, but then there has to be a state. It's so retarded. I agree with most of your views. Just trusting people to be moral never works long term. This is why I think that the unification of church and state is important. Okay, so you're for government to hack into your cameras and record every aspect of your life. I wouldn't be, it's not like I want them to do that, but I accept the fact that they already do it, and I don't have anything to hide. Communism equals pro-government. Monarchy also equals pro-government. Being Christian also means pro-government. So, no, you obviously don't know what you're talking. Conservatives are pro-government, dude. Democrats and Republicans are both pro-government. What are you talking about? None of this would work because it's dictated by man and people in power are corrupt. I'd wait for Christ. Yeah, but you can make a society better. Can you not? Societies have been better. So you don't believe in the right to privacy? That's an interesting question. That's something that I've battled with for quite some time because it's like, do you even have privacy? So if you're somebody who believes in God, the Christian God, I can only speak for that. Well, it's said that, like when we die, the second coming, we'll be judged by the things that we've done in this life. Therefore, did you ever have any privacy? Could you hide from God? No. So if you don't have privacy in the metaphysical, I do believe in that whole as above, so below. Then maybe you should be living a life. Maybe the reasoning for that is to live a life in which you would have no issues of somebody looking into your life. obviously, there's intimate moments in your life which you would like to keep private from the outside. I get that, like intimacy with your wife and things of that kind. But overall, I get it. Like, I don't want like people to be watching what me and my family do inside of our house at all times. We close our doors. We have our windows shut, so we like get this sense of privacy. So I get that. Like, I really do get it. But I think the point is to not be ashamed if your private life becomes exposed. Capitalism equals less government for the people. Yeah, but you understand that that's still pro-government, right? Atheists, how does that work with church and state? Well, then just don't badmouth the church. Don't badmouth. That's all. Like, don't be open opposition to the church, and you'll be okay. Or you can just leave. Workers' own means of productions. Hey, life, natural remedy. You've missed the most important part that Marxists teach, and that is the elimination of classes, which is arguably one of the most important things. And you could argue whether or not they want the government. Socialism is what you're describing. And that's why I already, well, actually, no, I mean, socialism and communism are both true in the sense that not true, but similar in the sense that, the workers, the people own the production, which is what I said, actually. So BS, you want church and state, explain to me how that works for atheists. I just told you, you can still live your life. Atheists can go over to Islamic countries. It's perfectly fine. Everything is always sorted out by first effort and money power. More libertarian than anything. I think libertarianism is disgusting. Why? I'm an American. Pat, I'm answering your question. Are you too low IQ to understand what I'm saying, bro? There's church and states around the world. If you just go to the Islamic countries, they're one of the, they have multiple church and state unification government, right? They partnership governments, right? You go there. You can be atheist and go there. You can be atheist and live there. No, that's not at all the point, Pat. But based on the flags in there, maybe you do need Jesus. Yeah, just don't voice any disagreement. Dude, you need to workshop these ideas. Well, that's part of what I do on here, but nobody actually ever debates me on these ideas. They just tell me how I'm a fascist or how I'm stupid, but they can never reason with me. I mean, Mike Dave, he's a good listener. He's always in here. He's, listening. But I can be atheist here. You can. Like, if you want me to workshop, like, I am workshopping these ideas here. That's part of the reason why I do this. But I never have anybody who's willing to have an intellectual conversation about these ideas, ever. It's usually just criticism and ridicule. So what are your responses to my position, as opposed to saying I need to work on these ideas? What is wrong with these ideas? What is wrong with these ideas? You haven't given me a good explanation. I have. You can live your life, Pat. Live your life the way that you live your life now. You just should not be openly ridiculing the church. You shouldn't be openly ridiculing or sowing doubt in the society regarding the God in which everybody else believes in aside from you, because you'd be the outlier. You'd be the outcast, all right? Why are you pro Great Reset? Nobody's pushing your religion on you. The religion on you, dude. Forceful conversions do not work, and that's not what Christians are after. That's why these things take a long time. You want me to say I'm a performer because I'm GAY? I don't care, dude. So yeah, here's why I'm pro Great Reset. And what I mean by that is not the term in which they use for. So basically, the Great Reset in which the global elite that we have today are promoting, I've already stated, but it's basically a restructuring of the global political, economic, social system, which entails smart cities, digital currencies, transhumanism, the Internet of Things, the Internet of Bodies, etc. Now, what I am for as far as the Great Reset goes is a restructuring, right? I think that we are going to have a reset on humanity, particularly because of the economy. And that's one of the main reasons we have this Great Reset talk is because our economy is horrible. It won't last much longer. It's a debt-based economy, which most people don't even understand that every time you use your credit card, you're literally making money. And they can leverage that out like 10 times. So for like every dollar, they can get $10, meaning that your taxes effectively mean nothing except for the fact that you are just complicit in they mean nothing aside from the fact that you agree that there should be a government. That's really all it is, because they print way more money than you ever pay in taxes. So I never said the petrodollar, Dustin. I never said that. I'm talking about how money can be created through debt, how you can use a credit card. Ben Bernanke even said we print more than we tax. Exactly. And so people don't understand this, which is why debt forgiveness would be no issue. It wouldn't cost you anything because it's fractional reserve banking, and people don't understand this because they're ignorant to the real economy. That's where our economy is built on. Our economy is built on debt, dude. Literally, you use a credit card, you go there, you put it into a store, you put it into, a freaking credit card machine, you somehow generated $20, and it's on the screen. No more money has been printed. It's just on a screen. So most of our money is digital anyway. So anyway, the reason that I'm pro Great Reset is because we are going to have a collapsing economic system. Therefore, there needs to be a reset to take place. The government ruined the economy, not itself. Well, the government and private bankers ruined the economy, yes. What if we do understand it and you are wrong? I don't think you do, actually, because if you have a debt forgiveness event in a debt-based economy, it would eliminate debt, which means it eliminates the money. Therefore, it's deflationary. And then let's say that debt is just not entirely eliminated, because you can just delete the money in the system because it is just digital. So you can go delete because the money's fake. You can just go delete. You hate people on fixed incomes? No, I don't know where that comes from. If you don't agree with him, you don't understand. That's awesome. No, not at all. I mean, just explain to me what's wrong. I support a livable minimum wage, meaning your minimum wage can pay rent. Now, no minimum wage pays rent. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on the minimum wage thing. I guess I can see that, but I think the reason why things have gotten so expensive is because of the debt. Forgive debt and we owe nothing. Rent from Klaus Schwab's. Arguably, you own nothing already, right? Metaphysically, you can't really own anything. And the less you own, probably the happier you'll be. You will own nothing and be happy. You're for that. Well, I mean, arguably at a metaphysical level, you already own nothing. I mean, I look at it from the perspective of Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ says the Son of Man has no place to rest his head, which means he owns nothing. He has like not even a bed to sleep in, right? So, and he's the pinnacle of human. He's like the pinnacle of mankind. He's what people should aim to be. And so I would argue he had the happiest life out of any human that's ever lived on this earth, because he knew how to live life. So I don't think possessions make you happy. Back in old days, a high school EDU, because of taxes from our government. See, the problem is the government. The problem is not the government. The problem is the people. Because they're so greedy. They want debt. Explain to me why it's fair for church and state. Well, hey, Pat, I don't know if you've ever looked into history whatsoever, but every society that's ever existed has had a religious framework to build the government. That's a fact, dude. So religion and government go hand in hand, and they have been forever. If you look at the Egyptians, right? They had pharaohs, which were divine kings. So they had the church and state merged as one. Now, I don't believe in a divine king, like a godly king, but I do believe in a king that has been, that's working with the church, that is living a godly life. So, yeah, I mean, that's the longest form of government. That's like pretty ancient. It's the way things have always been up until recently. Eating sandwiches could be great too. No, it couldn't actually. That's not at all what I'm saying. Runaway inflation destroys the nest egg of retirees. Yeah, and it's because people keep using their credit cards. It's because people get mortgages. It's because people get car loans. Like, debt makes money, guys. The elites believe in Satan, not church, but God. No more, friend. Yeah, I know. The elites that are in power today do believe in Satan. I'm with you there, Dustin. I 100% agree with you. I'm not for, Satan at all. How do you know that? How do I know what? The government is the problem and the one that can track in a social credit system with slavery. Arguably, you already have a social credit system in your everyday life. You determine who you're going to hang out with and who you're not going to hang out with based on their social ranking through your perspective. If you're going to support monarchy, the royalty shouldn't own anything, and people should buy land. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that would work. My ancestors came here for a leave and a tyrant king and religious behind. Okay, Linda Lou. How do you know sandwiches couldn't be good? Because it's literally waste coming out of your body. So yeah, that's why it wouldn't be good, because your body is getting it out of your system because it's waste. If you are rich and greedy, you believe in Satan? No, not at all. But I mean, if you are greedy, that is a sin, but it doesn't mean that you believe in Satan. You can still be rich and greedy and believe in God. It could just be one of the sins that you struggle with. Have you seen the Mile of South? Yeah, I have. I have seen that. Kind of sound like you said that. No, I just think that you have a hard time listening. What's your question, Brock? There's no national religion in our country, and there should be. And this isn't even this is my country. I'm an American. You said you came from another country. What's wrong with debt forgiveness? Not a damn thing. It's the very Christian thing to do. So greed equals capitalism, right? No, I mean, what do you think about the communist leaders in the Soviet Union or China or, any other country that's implemented that? They're very greedy too. I already added a tracking chip to my body. Okay, I don't know if I go that far. Say a rich atheist that doesn't believe in any of that nonsense. Well, then, yeah, I mean, he's denying God, which is a satanic act, and that's exactly what Satan wants you to do. So atheism is following Satan, whether they want to accept that or not. Why isn't Islam hated as much as Christians when they forcefully convert or be killed? Not all of them do it. A lot of radicals do it, and I don't know. Probably because Christianity is more true than Islam, I'd say. No national religion. The state will not tell me what to believe. They already do, and you don't even realize it, but that's okay. And what do you want to do with Muslim and Judaism? What about them? I mean, they can, once again, I don't know why people use these arguments as if they don't understand that there's countries in the world that are unified with their church. The government is merged with the church, and you can still go over there as a Christian. I can go to Iran as a Christian. I can go to Iran in Jerusalem. I can go to Iran. I can go to Afghanistan and be Christian. But I'm not going to go over there and try to subvert their churches and try to say you're believing in the wrong thing. Wrong about debt forgiveness and Christianity. User 564, you've never read your Bible and you've never said the Jesus prayer. The state USA already have a state religion, media, secular Satan in one particular. Yeah, for sure. And scientism. You want only what you believe. No, that's not even at all what Christianity is, right? So we have like main tenets of Christianity, right? That like Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. He came in the flesh. He died on the cross. He conquered death for man. And there's a Trinity, the Holy Trinity, right? So like that's like the main things that Christians should believe, but everything else, could be up for debate. And like this is how it was back in the day. Like, you can debate theology. You don't have to all agree on like the similar theologies. I mean, your theology could be wrong. You could have a misunderstanding, but it doesn't mean you all believe the same thing as far as Christianity goes. I mean, there's many Catholics who have different views and nuances in their views of Catholicism, but they all, and the same with the Orthodox, right? But they all have certain things that make them what they are, right? They believe the sacraments, they believe baptism, they believe that the church was established by Jesus, by God, right? No surveillance state, too much government, no reset, bad idea, and Christian, no debt forgiveness. I'm Christian. Well, you obviously haven't read your Bible or said the Jesus prayer. The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. Hey, I like the way that you cherry pick user 564. Why don't you say the Jesus prayer for me? And why don't you go to Deuteronomy where God orders, he literally orders debt forgiveness. So stop cherry picking. And also the borrowers, and you can't even read. The wicked borrow and do not repay. You know what that means? That means they borrow and they never pay anything back. Dumb. So you can have debt and you can be working on paying it back, and you just can't pay it back in full after X amount of time. You fail to do so. Debt forgiveness. Learn how to read, man. Like you're cherry picking? I'm not. I literally just use your own line. Borrower, do not pay. That means you never paid one payment of your debt. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, I don't know how to turn the camera on, so.
It's all good, man.
So you believe in pro-government and debt-free for the college students?
Debt forgiveness, yeah. I mean, debt forgiveness all around. I believe in debt forgiveness as a whole, not just for college students, but debt forgiveness, yeah. I believe in a jubilee.
I mean, I attempted college.
Okay.
It cost me $10,000, but I paid off my debt.
Good for
and
you.
I'm a construction worker. But why should our tax dollars pay for somebody
All right. So
for a shit degree?
So you're not. First off, do you know how fractional banking works?
No, I'm not a banker.
All right. So fractional reserve banking works as follows. For every dollar in circulation, they can make 10 more dollars, meaning that they have more dollars generated out of thin air than you will ever pay in taxes. Fact. And so every time do you have a credit card?
Yeah.
All right. So every time you go to the store and you use your credit card for payment, there's actually no money until you use your credit card. So every time you use your credit card, realize that you're making more fake money. Because that money doesn't exist until you put it in the credit card machine. And then when they charge you the $20 for whatever you're getting, that credit card now created money. Do you follow me?
Yeah, no, I understand that, but that's why I pay my credit card off every month.
Yeah, but there's people, by the way, it's called debt maxing. So there's people that know this very well and they game the system. And what they'll do is they'll call their credit cards companies and say they can't pay that $10,000 bill that they've racked up. And the credit card company, after a while, will work with them and say, all right, we'll take off $7,000. You know why they can do that? Because the money's fake. It's not real. It's credit. It's debt. It's imaginary. It's numbers on a screen. Therefore, the money that is going to be used to pay off these student loan debts, actually, the way it should be is they should just erase it because they literally can, since the money's imaginary to begin with. But I don't think that's what the Biden administration is going to do. What they're going to do, if I'm not mistaken, is using bonds, government bonds, to pay off these debts. And it's only $10,000, which is nothing. It's to me, I think it's pitiful that people are upset about that. It's 10 G's. It's nothing. And you can say, well, it's $300 billion. Well, what are they going to do? They already spent over $100 billion in Ukraine. Did your taxes go up because of that? Don't think so. Did your taxes go up for the billions of dollars we give to other countries every year? What about Israel? Does your money go up because we give money to Israel? No, it doesn't. Did your money go up when Bill Clinton did debt forgiveness for foreign nations in 2000? Does your money go up when we apply the public service loan forgiveness? No, it doesn't. You don't pay more, but your money's still fake. Our system is so fake. And it's immoral to keep people shackled down to $60,000, $70,000 of debt. And those $60,000, $70,000 debts are not just for blue-haired liberals studying gender studies. You know that, right? I know people who are engineers, civil engineers, who have student loan debt still, and they've been paying it for 10 years. So there's people that allow for you to do your job as a construction worker. Architects, you require an architect in order to have the construction plan to do your job. A lot of them have student loan debt. So it's not just blue-haired liberals. So a lot of people have been enslaved through debt. That is a form of slavery that is used upon the society. The only way that your money is made is through debt, man.
I don't get how that's slavery. They chose to take that loan and go to college.
Yeah, I'll tell you how it's slavery.
Hoping they're going to better their lives. If they don't better their lives, that's on them.
Yeah, so I'll tell you how it's slavery. It's very simple. So
my brother-in-law has $500,000 in student loans. So to become a doctor.
Yep.
But you know what? He's not going to get any of that assistance because he makes over the threshold.
Okay.
But he's actually bettering people's lives. So all these people that got these useless fucking degrees, and me with no college degree making $140,000 a year, why should I have to? It's going to come down to the taxpayer.
Did you
eventually.
not just listen to anything I just said?
No, I listened to everything you said, but how is it not going to come from the taxpayer? Where's the money coming from?
I already told you it comes from thin air, bro. It's the fractional reserve banking.
Thin air, that's not where it comes from.
It is.
We own other countries' money.
You obviously have no clue how the economy works. Do you know what the M1 money supply is, what the M2 money supply is, what the M3 money supply is, what fractional reserve banking is, where money actually comes from? Do you know any of that shit?
No, I just pay attention to see what's going on.
So you don't know what's going on.
Every time I see fucking people fucking doing dumb shit, it fucking falls on the hard-working people.
It doesn't fall on you whatsoever. I don't know how you don't understand that. Let me ask you.
How not?
Okay. Did your taxes go up after we sent Ukraine about $1 billion? Almost $100 billion. Did you pay more in taxes?
No, I'll find out in February.
No, you didn't, right? You didn't, right?
No, because last year I paid $35,000 in taxes.
Yeah, well, that's because of the tax bracket you're in. There's ways that you can lower your taxes, by the way, too. You know, especially if you're 1099. If you use your cell phone at all for work, you can write off your cell phone. Did you know that? If you use your internet at all for work, you can write off your internet. Did you know that? If you use your car for work and you're a 1099 worker, you can write off your mileage driven. What else can you do? If you have a home office for your construction business, you can write off a portion of your rent or your mortgage. So there's a lot of things that you can do to lower your tax bill. But anyway, yeah, you actually don't pay for it, dude. They make more money than is ever taxed. You do realize that, right? Donald Trump, under his presidency, there was like $20 trillion put into money circulation. That is more money than they get out of taxes every year. So your taxes do not pay for this, dude. Because they don't need your taxes to make money. I don't think you understand that. Your taxes are so small from the government's balance sheet. They're so small because of fractional reserve banking.
Well, that doesn't make sense. Inflation's going right now. So every time I go to the grocery store, I'm paying more.
Yeah, so inflation. Yeah, so actually what's going on is a bullwhip effect from the economy being locked down. The whole entire economy was being locked down.
When it should have never been.
Yes, I know. And Trump was a part of that problem. And so the reason why prices are going up is because we have supply chains issues. Supply chains were broken down for months. And that's why the price of lumber went up. That's why the price of oil went to zero. That's why food across the world is going up. But if you go to your local farmer, I ask you to do this. Go to your local farmer. Go to your local farmer's market and see if their prices have gone up. I know for a fact in my area they have not. because I work very closely with my local farmer. And the prices at farmers markets and local farmers have not gone up whatsoever. The only places that are feeling this are places that are experiencing the bullwhip effect, which is basically a demand pull inflation, which means that there was a supply chain restriction. Demand went up for these products, but very funny. We're seeing something obvious. We're seeing the opposite take place right now. More people are borrowing. More people are saving their money than spending their money, and there's less money being put out in circulation, which means we're actually facing deflation than inflation, which could be pretty bad too. But yeah. So the student loan shit will not affect your taxes, bro. It just won't. It can't, because that's not the way the system works. The government has way more money. They don't need your taxes, bro. They don't need your taxes to run the government. At this point, we just pay taxes.
What you're saying doesn't make sense, because if they're estimating $500 billion for those useless assholes that got these college degrees that are making them 30 G's a year, that's their own fault. Whatever. They wanted to do a gender.
But you sound like a programmed robot. You sound like a programmed robot.
I work my ass off to pay off the things I have. My wife stays at home.
Good. So does my wife.
I don't want her to work. Her job's in the home.
Good. I agree with you.
And she loves it.
Right on.
And I work 60 hours a week just to make sure she doesn't have to go to work and do the shit that I have to do and come home filthy and nasty and dirty every day. And you got all these assholes. So where's this $500 billion coming from? Because you can't print money and not expect inflation to go up and expect our taxes to go up.
First off,
going to go up.
You don't even need to print the money. What don't you understand? You don't need to print anything. No, you don't, because you don't understand.
Money doesn't have a value.
Money doesn't have a value. It actually
keep printing money and there's nothing.
It doesn't have value.
The price of our dollar is going to go below what it needs to be.
Do you not understand that our money literally has no value? It's literally no different than a gold star. If you get a gold star, it's the equivalent of having a dollar bill, dude. Our money is called fiat currency.
Just keep printing money and making.
That is not the argument I'm making. That is not the argument I'm making.
I'm asking a question.
No, that is not at all what I'm saying. That is not at all what I'm agreeing with.
Things to get better.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying, because you don't understand. You obviously don't understand what you're talking about. You're just spewing out Republican talking points. I'm not spewing out left-wing talking points, because ain't no left-winger telling you what I'm telling you, because they're too afraid to tell you how corrupt the banking system is to begin with, all right?
No, I agree with you 100% on how corrupt our government is.
Yes, and
I think we need to wipe out Republicans and Democrats and start to fuck over. And yes, I am a Republican. I disagree with 80% of them motherfuckers. I think they all suck.
Let me ask you this. It seems like we have similar values, because you said that your wife's a stay-at-home wife. You do the dirty work, so mine is too. So are you a Christian?
Yes, sir.
Do you know that God orders his people to have debt forgiveness?
Yes.
So why are you against debt forgiveness? If our God tells us to forgive others of their debt, so our God literally says, forgive others their debt after X amount of years. Why are you against it?
I understand it. No, I know exactly where you're reading out of, but I'm 100% for it if not 100% of your debt. I'm not saying.
But that's what God says.
People with these college loans, you signed an agreement to do it. That's on you. You did that.
So
okay, the 10 grand, it's not going to cover 90% of America's debt. But I don't feel that I should have anyone or the government should have to cover these people's debts. If you got a shit fucking degree and you're making shit money, or you're not using your degree, why is it on anybody to pay for your shit?
So you just said you know somebody who has $500,000 in student loans, and they don't have a shit degree. But
but he won't get any help.
Okay, but I think they should. I think eventually they will. I think that's the
No,
plan.
he shouldn't get help. He chose to become a doctor.
Didn't you just say that
He
you're a
knew what he was
Christian?
taking on.
Didn't you just say you're a Christian and that you believe our God says to forgive others their debts?
Yeah, I understand that, but me knowing my brother-in-law, he's like,
forget that.
From the government. I don't need it.
I can talk to you this way because we believe in the same God. Our God tells us to forgive debts. Literally, forgive debts in its entirety. Not just a little bit, but forgive the debts after X amount of years.
But me knowing my brother-in-law and how he is, he's like, no, I don't need the government's help.
Who cares about
degree.
that? This is ordained by God. This is ordained. God says you should forgive debts after so many years.
I like the last thing you said, like the taxes.
Well, God didn't say that. Well, God didn't say that. Jesus said, give to Caesar's what Caesar's. Yeah. Well, I would be opposed to getting rid of taxes too, because I mean, this is what Jesus said to do. Give to Caesar's what is Caesar's. So I'm for taxes. I have nothing against them, but I do have everything against people being enslaved by debt. And God said to free people from debt after X amount of years. So I'm going to listen to God and be on the side of, my God on this and saying it is good to free people of their debts. But we can disagree on that. That's fine. Maybe reconsider your position based on your religion, because our religion as Christians is to forgive debts. That is just true. The Lord's Prayer, it literally says right in there. It literally says, Jesus, yes, forgive our debts it says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So Jesus is saying, we forgive our debts and you forgive our debtors. And then in Deuteronomy, it talks about the fact that after X amount of years, you are ordered to free people of their debts. Because if not, you have made slaves. Do you know people, like when they die and they have debt, it gets carried over to their family? Like, dude, no, debt should be forgiven. So
at death, no, I agree with that 100%. If you die, like if I died tomorrow, my wife shouldn't take on my mortgage, which I have that all set up that she doesn't have to do that. I have a life insurance policy.
Well,
it's set up that if I die, the home is 100% paid off and the taxes are covered for 20 years.
Right. So, all right, man, I have somebody else that wants to come in here. Thanks for popping in. I hope you have a great day.
Man, have a good one.
You too.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
Hello, hi. So I've been listening to your live for a while. I've been here, I think, 2 days ago or 3 days ago.
Yeah,
right?
I remember talking.
All right, and I have a question. Why are you for a surveillance state? Are you saying? Oh, hold on. When you say surveillance state, are you saying like China's social credit system, or are you talking Big Brother type surveillance?
Well, they're kind of the same, right?
Right, kind of, yes.
Yeah.
Except we don't have like an explicit ranking in America, but they do in China.
Well, we do actually. We do.
Well, we have credit, but I mean, it's not as explicit. Like, it's not like you cannot buy metro tickets if you have a certain credit score. But why are you saying surveillance state is good? Why are you saying it could be great? Even?
Well, specifically, I said surveillance state could be great. And
right,
yeah. So the reason I think it could be great is, I've listed these issues earlier. Like, well, first off, in a moral society, in a society where the church and state are unified and things are running ideally, well, you'd be able to stop a lot of crime. You'd be able to point out the degenerates in society and keep them from, doing degenerate things. It'd be easier for the elimination of, illegal activity, whatever you deem that to be. So, for instance, in my ideal world, it'd be like getting rid of corn, right? Getting rid of most drugs. I think that, there's nuance in drugs, right? Like, I'm not against like the complete banning of cannabis or, opiates or things of that nature because they do serve a purpose. But as far as illegal transactions, it'd be easier to, like more just for recreational use. I think that would be easier to surveil. And then also I would add that we already have our own natural surveillance state. We already have our own natural uh, social credit system, right? The reason I say that is society has that on their own, basically determining who you accept and don't accept in the society. And if you go even further down, you have a social credit system in your own personal life. Who will you hang out with and who you won't hang out with? You're basically socially ranking them as to whether or not you want to be associated with said person, or you would let that person into your home. So we already have that. It's a natural thing. So I think that if it was ran ideally, it could be really, really good, and it would promote honesty because it would be very hard to lie in that society.
I see what you're saying, but let me ask you this. This only works if your system of belief is enforced. Like, let's say tomorrow I take over and my moral sets is different from your moral sets. Like, for example, I believe that murder is good, drugs are good, corn should be legalized, and I don't know, legality doesn't exist, right? I have a stoic point of view. It does, like, you would not be happy about that. So, like, why would you be okay with enforcing your definition of church and state and whole terms of legality and illegality, while you would not be happy if somebody else did it to you, just not respecting? Like, I lost my sense of, I lost the sense of thought, sorry. Pretty much what I'm saying is it only works if the laws that are enforced are okay with you.
No, not at all. I mean, so basically, I don't know if you meant to say this or not, but I think you kind of refuted your own argument because you said without the legality, which would mean there'd be no laws. And if there's no laws...
I meant, okay, yeah, sorry. I meant completely different laws, like completely different legality from what you define as moral laws. Like the complete opposite. Yeah. Like corn should be legalized. All drugs should be legalized. There should be no penalty for murder. All debt should not be canceled. No loopholes either. Taxes are abolished. So, like, why are you okay with when it comes, like, when you agree with it, but you're not okay when you don't agree with it?
So, in a specific example you just provided, I would not live there. So it wouldn't bother me. I would think that is a hellhole.
Do you have the? Let me ask you a personal question. You can just tell me if you don't want to answer it. Do you have the legal means right now to move out of the United States of America?
No, I do not.
Right. So you can't really move out of the place of the hellhole.
Well, actually, I will say this. So if we look at China, for example, the social credit system. Most people have no clue what's going on in China. Most people have never picked up a history book of China. Most people have never read Chinese literature whatsoever. But yet they use this as a good talking point. So it's anyway, you go to rural China and you tell me where the social credit system is. You go to rural China and you tell me where it's at.
Okay, I can agree with that. It only works in the big cities, but when you're talking about Big Brother surveillance system, you're talking about anything that is connected to the internet. Right? In China, obviously, nobody's gonna go to a shitty village in Xinjiang and tell some grandma you have some anti-communist belief. Although it is happening in some places, like the Uyghur genocide, right, where grandmas all just 82, 85 can get slapped in concentration camps. We're not talking about that. If you want to move away from it, you're going to have to sacrifice your access to the internet. You're going to have to sacrifice your pretty much any technology access, and you probably have to talk to half the people that you know because they may report you to the government. And I don't think that kind of life is some kind of life you would like to live. Like, personally, I would not.
Well, I think we can both agree that it could be taken very badly. Just like I think we can both agree that governments can turn very badly, but we would both agree that governments are a necessity for a functional society.
pro-governments. Obviously, when we talk about should there be somebody that governs people, yes,
That's what I
because
mean.
people are never stupid. But but the way that the governments are structured right now, and you're pro-government, so correct me if I'm wrong on there. But when the way that the government is structured right now is people like me, you, the chat, we don't have a direct mean of controlling the government, right? We don't have a way to say we don't like the government, turn it away. And I don't agree with that. I think that the government should depend on the people, not
It does.
otherwise.
It does. So I have a totally different viewpoint on this. The government is the external manifestation of the people's inner world. What I mean is your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your beliefs, your values, our ancestors, I'll say, all went into the construction of the government. And so now the government can only do what the morality of the people say is okay. Right now, we have no moral compass, which is why we're seeing everything that we're seeing today. Because if it was the other way around, and there was high morality within the society, we would not be seeing the degeneracy in which we're seeing today. And that's true.
I don't think that's true, actually. That's not true at all. Meaning that Christians believe that a morality set was given to you by God, and a lot of people do have maybe not strong morals, but they have morals. Like we saw that when I think it was Bill Clinton who was impeached last
Donald
before Trump?
Wasn't it Clinton?
Before Trump. Yeah, the one that had an affair with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah, Clinton.
Right. So when Bill Clinton actually did cheat on his wife, there was a huge public backlash when documents that surfaced about Trump having connections to a Jeffrey Epstein surfaced. People had a massive uproar. Just the thing is that when you have a president that is corrupt, the people aren't corrupt necessarily. Like there was a good amount of the population that wanted Trump removed, right? But the way that the government is structured, right, that the politicians always win in the end. Mm-hmm. That is wrong in my opinion.
Well, they don't always win in the end.
They impeached Trump, but nothing really changed. They impeached Clinton, and nothing really happened.
Yeah, well, it's because there was a lack of integrity and a lack of morality and a lack of standards that the people held their government to.
As you argue, people wouldn't have asked for him to get impeached. People wouldn't have taken to the streets.
Yeah, there would have been more, and there wasn't.
But there still was enough to get him impeached, but even after he got impeached, nothing happened.
Yeah, well, he still has a
massive public outreach.
Yeah,
and that's he's not president.
And that's because we have a very degenerate society.
What do you define as degenerate? Do you define society degenerate because corn and all the fucked up stuff that goes on in the internet?
A lot of that, yeah. The acceptance of the whole pride movement, all that stuff. Degenerate behaviors. Debt. Living off of debt. Degenerate behavior. Being addicted to food. I have a degenerate behavior myself. I'm a little overweight. I like to eat more than I should. That's a degenerate behavior. Drinking alcohol in excess. Degenerate behavior. Doing drugs, degenerate behavior. Gambling, degenerate behavior. And in our society today, in the West, we have a lot of degenerate behavior. A lot. Like it is very, very hard to find anybody who... It's very hard to find a grown man who doesn't watch porn, but yet he has a daughter and he has a wife. It's very hard to find that in today's society.
But I'm kind of confused here because you define them as degenerate and immoral, but why are they degenerate and immoral?
Well, because it leads to bad things in your life, and it goes against the way humans should live.
Wait, hold on.
So what happens if you're all right? So let's tackle the more immediate.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
So alcoholism. So alcoholism. I know, and don't throw me with your exceptions. I get it.
I drink alcohol, and I'm an alcoholic.
No, hang on. Let's flesh this all the way out. So First off, are there exceptions to the rules? Can people smoke cigarettes their whole life and drink alcohol their whole life and live to be 90? Yes. Most people do not have that. Like 99% of people who are going to become alcoholics or smokers are going to have a premature death because of their bad behavior. And they're going to have a rough life, especially when they get older due to their deteriorating body, and it's going to be deteriorating much quicker. So alcoholism causes cirrhosis of the liver, can cause other organ failures. It can just ruin your life. It can make you go into the divorce, go into debt, and then lead into other behaviors that are just bad for you. So that's how we can determine what a degenerate behavior is on the physical side of it. Then you can apply the same thing with drugs. You can apply the same thing to gluttony of food. And now if we're going to get into the more metaphysical side of things, like not even metaphysical, but the more psychological effects of things, if we look at corn, for example, we do know that it is a weapon of war. It has been used in war, like in Iran and Pakistan, to an attempt to make the men docile, lower their vitality, and it is a tool of population control. It also affects the mentality of men, changes the way that they perceive women, and just lowers the overall ambition to create life when you can just have the fast satisfaction. So this is how you can determine whether an action is degenerate or not. What's the long-term effect of said action? You may have good, it may be pleasurable now, but what's the long-term effect of said action? If the long-term effect of said action is decline, it's degenerate, it's immoral.
So you know that these behaviors happen whenever society happens, right?
Yep.
So pretty much you're against society.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. And that's not really a good argument either.
You're saying that we should ban all of the.
No, so what you're saying, like, let me just explain to you how silly that argument is really quick. That's like saying.
No, I see how silly it is. I see how silly it is. I'm sorry, I jumped to conclusion there. May have been biased a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is all of these things that manifest, they manifest whenever society happens. Whenever human beings live rather comfortably, we have these behaviors, right? So, and a lot of people would agree that those behaviors are what makes life fun, right? There are people that drink because it is fun to drink. There are people that gamble because it is fun to gamble. Mm-hmm. And I don't see how, like in your perfect state, in your utopia, why you would want to even take away people's freedoms, pretty much, because it is somebody's freedom to drink or to gamble, and you're nobody to dictate their freedom. You're nobody to dictate their choice. Why do you think that because, like, for example, why do you think that because in your morality set, or in the morality set that was given to you by God in some cases, because that is wrong in this morality standpoint, that is wrong on all accounts for everybody. Like, for example, I can adopt a brutalistic behavior and say we shouldn't live in cities. We should live in caves and eat what the land gives us, live off the land. And obviously, I would expect you to disagree with me, because I would expect you to disagree with me. So why are you trying to dictate your moral laws and your moral compass onto everybody else, onto everybody that lives in the state?
So it's not my moral laws, by the way. I don't get my morality from myself. My morality comes from God. He's the authorship of all morality.
God's morality. I said your morality of the morality given to you by God, because I was expecting you to say that.
Okay. God
gave you these morals. But again, let's say I'm a Buddhist. Say I'm a Muslim. Say I'm an atheist, for example. Mm-hmm. I'm an atheist. So why should I living in this state? Not because I chose to live in this state.
I get your question, but you did not refute anything I just said. You just said that people think it's fun.
It is.
Well, hang on. You said that people think that those actions are fun and they would disagree. But do you disagree that they all have long-term negative effects?
They do have negative effects. I agree with you there, but I wouldn't define them as immoral.
Yeah, so, okay, then I guess we disagree, because I think that anything that has a long-term has a long-term...
There's a lot of stuff that you would probably agree with that does cause long-term effect. Like, for example, I'm not trying to insult you on a personal, I'm not trying to go an ad hoc argument, but for example, you said yourself before, you do enjoy food, right?
Yep.
You have gluttony.
Yep.
So technically speaking, the gluttony, eating a lot of food, actually leads your body to develop
Yep.
certain issues later on in life. Let me ask you this. Do you use a computer? Do you use a phone? You're using one right now to stream.
Yep.
Did you know that a phone has radioactivity that can probably destroy your body in the long term? So
hang on. What I'm talking about is behavior. So technology itself is not immoral or sinful to have, but behaviors in which you commit, your actions, are what make it immoral. Not the technology, not the food itself, not the drugs itself, not the alcohol itself. But
using technology.
I'm sorry?
The action of using technology.
Yeah, so the action of using technology, you can then make the argument of being slothful, right? You can make the argument of a drug addiction because it does hit your dopamine receptors like a mofo. So you could say that these are forms of drugs. These are forms of ways of escaping reality, which I would consider as a sinful behavior if you want, because sin just means that you're going away from God. It's just missing the mark. It's missing what humans should be doing. So while I get your point, right? So that's how I would categorize those things. Not that in and of themselves they're bad. They're tools that can be used. I think that God gave us the ability to create technology. Can there be negative side effects to things that we use? Of course. But there are certain things that you can do forever and not have negative side effects to. Like, I'd argue that you can pray as much as you'd like and you never have a side effect. Obviously, you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to drink. All these things are obvious to anybody who's a human being. Excuse me. You can do contemplative prayer. You can read your Bible. You can walk in nature. You can go to church as much as you'd like. You can, there's tons of things that you can do consistently that would never be bad. You can hunt as much as you like, fish as much as you like. None of these things are going to really cause a lot of long-term problems the same way that, say, eating a bunch of food for a really long time has. That's my biggest weakness. So, for one, I don't struggle with alcohol. I don't struggle with drugs. I don't struggle with corn. I don't watch corn. I don't do any pleasuring of myself. I don't struggle with those things. There's a lot of things I don't struggle with, but the only thing that I really, really struggle with is food. I really like food. And so that is something I need to work on.
That wasn't my point. My point being that you cannot, either all of the behaviors that damage your body are not okay, or none of them are. You cannot. Well,
I mean, this is also.
You cannot be selective here. You cannot say.
I'm not being selective.
Alcohol is bad. God didn't even say that because Jesus himself drank.
I never said alcohol was bad. You're not listening to me. I never once made the argument alcohol is bad. I said alcoholism is bad. Drug addictions are bad. At the very beginning of this, I have no issue if people are smoking cannabis for medical reasons. I think God created it for that. Same with opioids. Same with the poppy fields. I have no issue with these natural organic drugs whatsoever. It's the excessive consumption of them, and then you become addicted to them where they're your whole life. They're all consuming. I have no issue with them whatsoever. Them in of themselves are not immoral, the same way that technology is not immoral. It can go either way. It's a tool that you can use for good, for bad, like food. Like down this chain of argument, I'd have to say, like from what you were just saying, I would have to say food is bad, but that would be illogical because then we'd all have to die if we didn't eat. It's about being temperate and having self-control and discipline. And then trying to optimize your life.
Confused me because alcohol, every time you drink alcohol, it technically does damage your body. It damages your stomach lining, etc., etc. So alcohol is literally poison. So it damages your body, but you don't consider it sinful. But the excessive consumption of alcohol is like how?
Yeah. So first off, there's different kinds of alcohols that aren't damaging to your body necessarily. They can be used medicinally.
No, we're talking ethylic alcohol here.
Yeah, I know.
The alcohol that you're finding in alcoholic beverages, it's all the same alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, ideally people should not be drink. Like, okay, so this argument also falls on its face too, because then if we agree that people should smoke cannabis, well, that's damaging their lungs some way. It's damaging their mental capacity in some way. Well, there's going to be a give and take for it. There's going to be a give and take for it, but there's a time where it's going to be optimal to use said thing, right? And it's not bad to drink alcohol. What's bad is to become addicted to it. So like, well, and my argument is, how do you know something's a degenerate behavior? Is over the long term. Can you do it long term in excess? If you can't, then that's degenerate behavior. Then you are crippling yourself. You are killing yourself. But if you have a glass of wine, arguably wine's good for your heart, right? The red wine's good for your heart. They say a glass of red wine at the end of a long night, at the end of a long day, rather, is good for your heart. So that's why I said certain alcohols, you could argue that actually have a benefit to it. And when we look at the Bible, it's mostly talking about wine when it says alcohol in any regard. But that's what I'm referring to. It's not that you're using it to like heal you. Like we can look at any medication and then determine, okay, these have these negative side effects, therefore you can't have them. Well, no, I mean, for example, reading, there's a negative side effect to reading. And that negative side effect to reading is that your memory actually will not be as good as somebody who's illiterate, because the person who's illiterate, this has actually been proven, the person who's illiterate has to have a bigger memory, has to have a stronger memory than you, because they can't read. They can't just say, I can forget this and read it later. They can't read. So they're forced to remember everything as much as they can, whereas the reader has the luxury of saying, I can take these nuggets, forget this, forget that, whether you realize you're doing it or not. Some of us can, realize that we're doing these things. But the person so like, there's a side effect for everything you do in this life. This world isn't perfect.
That makes me even more confused. I'm not trying to like troll you or anything. I'm genuinely confused in here, because one moment ago you were saying that anything is sinful if it damages your body.
Long term.
Right?
I said long term. Look at the long term effect. Long term effect. And does it lead to fruit? Does it make you more prosperous, successful, healthy? Does it help you live a longer life, a more fruitful life? Does it? If you do those things in excess? No, they don't.
All right, I see your point. But, my point still stands. It still hasn't been answered. Like, why are you trying to push the morality that was given to you by your God to me? Which
I've already answered it. I'm not pushing it onto anybody. I'm saying that ideally, we should have
a state where the church is tied with the government.
Yes, and
so you're pretty much pushing for a system that favors your morals over my set of morals or my definition of morals.
Yes, because they're God's.
Right.
Because that's the way God wanted things to be.
But you're shielding yourself behind God without,
which I can do, because this is where I get my authority from. I accept that.
So you accept the fact that you're pretty much doing this in the name of a God that might not even exist.
He does exist.
There's no proof for him.
Yes, there is.
Okay, apart from the Bible, there is no other proof.
I never use the Bible in proving God. I never once do that.
Yeah, okay, just putting my hands forward before you say the Bible is proof of God. There's no definitive proof of God unless you're using the God of the gaps policy, which is it's stupid. But
where do you get order from?
Sorry?
Where do you get order from? Order doesn't come out of chaos. That's a contradiction.
Depends. I mean, you can define it with God. I can define it with philosophy. I can say that because society is structured this way, we needed morals. But I don't think that because you cannot answer a specific question, an existential question, you have to shield yourself behind God. Right? It's not shielding. God of the gaps.
No.
You cannot answer something, so you say, "Oh, God must have done it."
No.
God did it.
No. There has to be logically something implementing order in the universe. There has to be, because order just doesn't come to be.
Really?
Where has order just come to be? Does order just magically appear in your life?
I mean, I make order.
Exactly.
So Yeah, but that God doesn't make the light.
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Does the sun? Do you have control of the sun coming up every morning?
No, but I know that the sun doesn't technically come up in the morning. It's the Earth that is rotating around the sun.
I hate when people
So
do
there's
this.
no God in there.
Okay. I hate when people do that. Like, stop getting like, dude. You see the sun from your perspective. You literally see the sun in the sky, up in the sky every morning. Do you not? You see the moon up in the sky.
There is enough proof to say definitively that the Earth is actually rotating around the sun, and there's no God whizzing my sun around the Earth.
My point is, and you've already kind of led into that, which is there's order in your life that you create, but there's order in your life that you don't create either.
Because some external natural phenomenon is happening.
Right? I know, man. I know.
That doesn't prove God.
No, dude. Right? You just keep following your logic all the way until the beginning of time, and you'll see where I'm coming from.
But that's the God of the gaps, though, because again, any question that you cannot answer, be it philosophical or naturalistic, you say, "Oh, God must have done it." And when we find something more, when we find something more. You just move the goalpost back. You say, well, okay, now that we know that question, what happened before that? Oh, God must have done it. You see how that's cyclical and wrong?
No, it's not pushing the goalpost back. I mean, science changed more than religion. Science has proven wrong a lot more than religion.
More than religion because that's the point of science. We look for questions and we
all right.
answer
Well,
the questions.
hey, man, I don't want to get off this topic too much. I wasn't on here to have a theological discussion. I have somebody else that wants to come in here. I have somebody else that wants to come on here, man. I really do appreciate your conversation. You have a good one. Feel free to come in anytime.
See ya.
Oh, he's connecting. All right. All those lo-fis that don't have any morals or values or having us taxpayers repay their loans. The Most High is a designer. He is. All right, River, I'm going to kick you out, and then if you want to try to come back in, feel free. It said you were still connecting, so the beginning of time wasn't as long as they say. That's an argument. Yes, every nurse with college debt is a low life. Give me a break. Right, exactly. These people are so programmed and disgusting, I think, that are against student debt. They don't even understand how the economy works. It's crazy. What's going on, River?
How are you doing?
Doing well.
Doing well. We've talked previously. I was listening in for just a second on your with that discussion with that last guy, and what I find kind of funny is you believe in like the crisis of reproducibility, right?
Yeah, but I want to stay on topic here. You know, if we end up going off topic at all in our conversation because we started at a point, that's fine, like we did with that last conversation. But if you know, so any of these topics here, you specifically, I mean, unless you're tying it into it, you could be.
Well, I mean, I was just using this because it was funny you brought up wine and you brought up these other things when it's like those are, in my opinion, like the perfect examples of that crisis of reproducibility where the wine study I don't think has been reproduced, let alone like giving like conclusive evidence. And then you brought up another claim of like, I forgot. Better working memories than literate ones, but so I just want to point out, I just thought that was funny that, you know, anyways, as far as like actual you know, as far as like an actual conversation, let me get this straight, right? You have a worldview that's based on God, and you believe that God created everything that's natural and that everything that's natural is good, right? Because it came from God. Am I correct in stating that?
Well, I don't know that everything that is natural is good necessarily.
You've used that to justify slavery before.
Yeah, I think that was a poor argument on my part. I've thought about that a little bit more. I don't know that it means that it's good.
Okay. So I guess that's where the discussion is like, what's your moral system then? And
Well,
Yeah, what's your moral system?
Well, once again, I want to focus on the topics that are actually for the show today. I don't want to get
Okay.
too far from that.
So you say pro-government, but are you pro our democratic government, or are you pro a autocratic government?
Overall, I am for government. That's what I mean. Like, I'm not an anarchist. I think that governments are good. I think that they were originally established by God, and they are implemented to keep society in order. Can governments become corrupted and evil? Yes, they can be.
Okay, so you're pro all types of government then? Is that your case?
My ideal government.
Think anyone really?
My ideal.
I think Oh, sorry.
The ideal government I would prefer would be a monarchy.
Okay, so and why a monarchy over a democracy?
Yeah, very simple. I think that corruption is a lot harder in a monarchy. You'd have more accountability under a monarchy. And they have, and from my understanding, the longest lasting history out of any government form ever. And there's more cohesion to the society.
So let's talk about some of those. I think it's true monarchies lasted longer than forms of society like we currently have. However, I think the reason for that is based on the speed at which technology improved and the speed at which like society itself improved. And if you look back, most of those monarchies were very stagnant. It was based on some sort of feudal order. It wasn't like they had a dynamic economy like we currently have. And I frankly don't think that in a world at which we currently live, where we value things like independence and freedom, and where we value things like improving quality of life and creating more for more people, in a somewhat materialistic way, that a monarchy is going to function at all. So unless you want to return to like an illiterate society where most people are peasants that are tied to the land, that form we can say it's stable. It lasts a while. People are living off subsistence, but I don't think anyone else is going to agree with you that we should return to such a society.
Well, you wouldn't be returning to such a society. Literacy was improving over that period of time. I mean, there's a big misconception, especially with the Catholic Church. I'm not a Catholic, but the Catholic Church, during its time being joined with the state under the monarchy system, it was teaching people how to read. It was helping people learn other skill sets as well. So this belief that it was just stagnant, there was no growth, is not true. I mean, there was a lot of improvements under monarchies as well. I mean, you have to figure that the only way that we got to where we are today is because of the thousands of years of monarchical systems prior to us, which they established some sort of groundwork and technology in which we can build upon. So there was progress, there was movement, and there was a sense of freedom as well in these societies.
So I'd actually push back against that. I think that the things that were the seeds of the destruction of monarchy, that led to the destruction of monarchy, were the things that were actually moving us in this more progressive, more technologically advanced and literate direction. I think that it was at the great peril of monarchies to see things like Carlos, nice comment. To see things like where was I? To see things like literacy, to see people moving towards towns and cities, to see like the merchant class grow. I think these were things that were marking the downfall of monarchy, and I think that historically that was the case. We saw the rise of capitalism, we saw the decline of monarchy, the rise of democracy, and things being the result of a growing middle merchant class, the bourgeois class, so to speak. And, it wouldn't have happened without these types of changes, right? And so when you're pointing towards like literacy and these things, like, no, I think historically literacy and education are things that lead towards a more democratic, more equal society. And we can say that such a society is less stable in the sense that like a market system is going to be inherently dynamic and prone to ebbs and flows and so on. But I don't think that, like if you could educate slaves and expect them to stay slaves. I don't think you could educate serfs and expect them to stay serfs. I think that the more education people have, the more logically they can think, and rationally they can, rationally they can be. They're going to be prone to think, hey, this system of, there's no empirical evidence for a god. The basis for these kings and queens and monarchs is based on something that I just said doesn't exist. Therefore, why are we listening to these people? They have unjustified rule, etc.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, because I would argue that education for some people, could be bad in the sense that they don't have the intellectual capability to understand the nuance and set in education. So I know it makes me sound like a little bit of an elitist, but I think it's true. I think that, I do agree with you that education's good, right? Like, education's not a bad thing. But for instance, if you're trying to teach the government to somebody who maybe has no understanding of the government and why it's in their own benefit, I mean, think about it today. So many people vote against their own interests today in a democracy, in a republic that we have. So I don't believe that, and I would actually argue that
that's the lack thereof, though, right?
I'm sorry.
That's because they lack education, right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It could be because they have the wrong education. It could be because they have the education, but they can't actually understand the nuances in it. So, like, I can't give a good analogy right now. I've been talking for almost 2 hours, but so there's also that, I believe, as well. Like, not everybody can process information, education, to a point where they're going to determine what's best for the overall collective. Do I believe in individual rights? Yes, to an extent, but I also think that the collective should take precedent over the individual, because without the collective, the individual can't be free, it can't be safe, it can't have a family, it'll have a hard time getting food, water, shelter, etc. So the collective is arguably more important in order for the individual to have said rights. So somebody can get properly educated and then, as you were stating, do these revolutions, which these revolutions did not actually help them at all. They just put them in other forms of slavery and other forms of, financial destitute. I mean, we still have poverty, really bad in America. We have poverty really bad in the world, right? And poverty, I argue, is a social construct, because there's a lot of very poor people who don't see themselves as being impoverished. And you can argue it's because they've never seen wealth, but you could also argue it's because they understand they have everything they need in life. So are you really poor? Probably not. But those people, like the serfs, the slaves, they were used as pawns for other elites to then implement their system, not a system that would favor them. I mean, if we think that this system's the best right now, then why are we complaining about, whatever side of the political aisle you're on? You can be a lefty and saying that the corporations own everything and etc. Or you can be on the right saying that these global elites all over the world, these governments, are controlling everything. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right? Like, you're in this world, and we can argue what's going to be a better form of slavery, essentially, like whether we want to admit that or not. And that's kind of what society accepts as a whole. Not everybody, right? I think there are some people that aren't living in the quote unquote matrix, that have seen their way out. But overall, just because you get educated, just because you become more literate, more intelligent, doesn't mean that the society is going to become better as a whole. Like, yes, it can become better in certain ways.
So there's a few things there. Like, when you say, like, people being educated in the wrong way, right? Like, from your perspective, I'm educated in the wrong way if I think that a more like constitutional republic or democratic system is preferable to a monarchy. You'd say, oh, you weren't raised in the eyes of God, or like in the light of God. You don't have this understanding of of like what's natural and what's good and what's what system is preferable. And so for despite your education, you were educated wrongly, right?
No, I would not. No, that's not what I would say at all. I mean, you seem to be very, anybody who has an understanding of our current government, I'd want our current government to withstand. I just think that there's certain flaws in the government, and I think that a monarchy would be better. But I have, no issue with somebody being able to defend the Constitution and our republic in a very educational or logical way. Like not knowledgeable way rather than educational, knowledgeable and logical way.
Sure.
I don't think that it's wrong education whatsoever.
Okay, so I agree. Like, if education is imparting knowledge, and knowledge we can define, in simple terms as like, justified true belief, which I'd argue it requires like, a stronger sense of understanding. Then I do think that really the issues that we're seeing in our society and why people vote against their interests is because they lack knowledge of what will actually benefit them, right? They lack, maybe they've been educated to think like, here's a good example, right? And maybe you disagree, right? But if a union is functioning properly, right? If you are a worker, being a part of a union will lead to you getting better benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet there are people who are working class who think that a union is bad. It's just another form of like mafia.
Right.
It's going to take money from you, and it's not going to give you anything in return, etc. And to be fair, there may be things such as there may be like unions that are corrupt that have these types of issues for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if a union is functioning properly, then it's going to give you those benefits, right? And so if you understand how a union works, if you understand what it should be doing, and that type of thing, having knowledge of those things will lead to you getting what you want, from that type of system. But like I said, we have an education system in the U.S. right now where many people, specifically more conservative leaning people, are educated to think that unions are bad. There are things that that go against their interests in certain ways, etc. Right? So there's a sense of that, right? But it's because they have incorrect knowledge of what a union actually is, and that kind of thing. So I can understand from that perspective if you may agree to like what I said there, right?
Yeah.
I think that once again, when we have an understanding of how the system works, if we have better education in a lot of these ways, I don't think people will go from that to reaching the conclusions. I think the majority of people aren't going to reach the conclusions you've reached, that a monarchy is preferable, right?
Maybe.
I think and that's for me is based on I think there is an issue between science and religion. I think there's a conflict there. We can say that there are issues with science. I don't disagree with that at all. And I can even give you some ground and say that there's many truths in religion. There's like many of the commandments, for instance, I think are things that if we follow those, they'll lead to a better life for most people. So I can agree to those types of things, but I simply disagree with the claim that going back to a monarchy justified by a god and returning to following the dogmatic readings of the Bible. I don't think that those things will necessarily lead to the lives that most people want to live.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all. That's I'm pro-government in the sense of a democratic, more representative government than a monarchy. And then I think I disagree with your claim that the system of checks and balance and so on is more corrupt than a monarchy is. Because from my perspective, a monarchy is far more set up in a sense of sure, you can say stability, but the stability is the unjustified control of some taking the resources of the others. Whereas a democratic system is more of, you all get a say, you can all push for your interests and fight it out more in that arena.
Yeah, well, what I'd say to that is I think stability is a sign of something is working. If you have a family that is, for instance, if you see families that have a lot of disputes internally, they're probably going to get a divorce. They're probably going to be broken. The children are probably going to have some issues. Unstable environments aren't good, but that doesn't mean that well, let me rephrase that. Unstable environments can be good, but typically speaking, they're not. And stable environments mostly are good. There can be times when they're not. And I would say when the society is mostly stable, people have a higher mental health. Their physical health, I would argue, is usually better. Can it be bad? Of course, just like any form of government can be bad. And I will say, going back to the corruption, the reason I make this point is because there is checks and balances in the monarchy as well. It's not there's never been actually a true absolute monarch. Whether they've been absolute monarchs in name, but there have been other people which they consult to, they get advice from, that could push back on the king from doing said rules. In addition to that, they have a lineage check and balance. So if this is going to be a dynastic family where the king dies, his son takes over, well, he also has to take in consideration what his child is going to, assume after his death or when he steps down. what kind of position will he be in as far as the leader and how the people look to him and what things he has to deal with. So there's checks and balances there, but the reason I would argue that it's allows for less corruption and it's easier to point out the corruption in a monarchy is because of this. In a democratic republic system like we have, you have, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but, I think it's like 500 and something House of Representatives and like 52 or something, or 100 senators, something like that. I think it's 100 senators. So anyway, you have like almost 700 people in the government, and then you have the president, and then you have this bureaucracy, and then you have lobbyists, and then you have corporations, and then you have campaign donors. So every individual House of Representative, every individual senator could wear a jacket of their list of sponsorships, and then you could probably determine who they're voting for and who they're voting against, and are they really for the people, or are they bought and sold by these corporations, these lobby groups? Additionally, why is it that the politicians come out of office and then go into the lobbying sector? It's called the revolving door. Same with the president. So there's so many different powers behind, and this isn't like, I'm not trying to be like this grand conspiracy theorist, but I think we can all agree that politicians get lots of money from campaign donations, from other lobbying, etc., in favor of big corporations. And there's a lot of big corporations. There's a lot of private individuals. So it then makes it harder to untangle the spider web of corruption in this democratic republic system. It doesn't mean it can't work. But I would just say that would be a main argument against it. Additionally, you have every 2 years, you have a new House of Representatives. So how can you have longevity? How can you think long term if you can't have continuity within your party even, right? And additionally, you have two parties fighting over each other. Then you have that. So then every 2 years, you have the House of Reps. It's on and off elections for the senators, right? But every 6 years, there is a Senate race. So every 6 years, there's a Senate race. And now they're doing the same thing. And then the president, they're doing the same thing every 4 years. So, it's hard to really think long-term in these kind of systems. And I think they're easier to be corrupted and manipulated for the favor of the corporations who can ensure their interests are being kept in perpetuity over the people. But it's kind of hard because the corporations can only do what the people want as well, because we vote with our dollars, we vote with our attention. So it's very complicated, right? And I think that it's not like a really bad system. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like I'm not really for democracy, but I'm not anti-republic. I think that it has been working, but I would just make the argument there's less of that when you have a monarchy.
Sure. So let me start off by kind of addressing your point of like stability and instability, right? I think that instability and stability, like neither is necessarily good or bad. I think it depends on what we're talking about, right? I think that, for instance, you can say like a system existing, a stable system is typically good, right? But if I were to say, the average life expectancy is stably set to, let's say, 20 years or 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I said it's more unstable because it's continually rising, right? We could say that in a sense like that, one is preferable to another. Now, that example I think is important because when we look to monarchies, the average life expectancy in many of them were much, much lower, but they were stable. Whereas in our current system of capitalism and democracy that's lasted about 200 years, we've seen life expectancy is generally on the rise that entire time, right? So in that sense, we can see instability being positive. And then in another sense, we can say if it is stable in the sense of one family is, in charge for over, like some amount of time, we're seeing an aristocratic class that is, because of its unjustified rule, corrupt. It's only there for its own interests. And as long as it can maintain power, it's going to do what it can, right? Mm-hmm. Versus an unstable system of ours where everyone's interests are those of self-interest. We're all pitted against one another. We all have the incentive to find people who are competing against us, who are doing bad things, and point those out to others to get them removed from positions of power and use checks and balances to do so. In order, in a way that like you see, I do see that, there's truth to saying that, like, in our system, power relations are more concealed. Corruption can be harder to find, right? But we could say hard and soft corruption, right? Hard is the stuff that is typically, when it's found, is, prosecuted, or, people are removed from power because of it, right? And then there's soft corruption, which is the sense of, I would say is more in line with, one group of lobbyists are more powerful because they have more money to spend than another group of lobbyists, right? And so they're more likely to get their way. They donate more money, etc., right? In a sense, though, like, lobbying itself is not necessarily a bad thing. It's in fact incredibly important to our system, because without lobbying, people wouldn't be able to communicate and get their interests heard by their representatives and so on. So, I agree that there may be issues with some of that, like, soft forms of corruption. However, I think that system is far better for that instability than a stable system that's like one family. Cool, if we can raise, if we can raise our tax on the peasants, then we can get more out of the peasants and cause them to starve. Like, it's stable because we have a military and they have no force to defend, to do anything about it. And so as serfs, they're just stuck to this deal that we put them in.
Well, I would say that, first off, it's not totally accurate. This is a big misconception people have about antiquity, and that is life expectancies have increased over time. They actually have not. What we're looking at is the infant
mortality.
Yes, exactly. So, like, people have
infants are dying nowadays because of our our advanced system, our system of science that's continually changing itself as we learn more. Yes.
Yep. So I just wanted to point that out, because people were, especially in the rural areas of the world, they were living as long as we live today. So the numbers are just skewed because of that.
Die from just a random disease, though, right?
I don't know. Because the reason I say I don't know, and I'm not equipped enough to have that debate, is because our medical system currently today is very corrupted, and I know that there's been a real an attempt to keep our ancient medical history, how we used to do things, under wraps. Like, I mean, we can go into that whole rabbit hole, but that's not really on topic today. But so I don't know. Maybe you could be right. I'll give you this. You probably are right based on what I know, that we are able to treat certain diseases more. But I do know that there's a lot of corruption in the medical field today. So, but anyway, so yeah, I mean, that's why I said too at the beginning of my statement that instability doesn't necessarily mean bad. Instability could be good. But most of the time I would argue it's bad. Instability can be bad, but most of the time I would argue it's good when we look at the world.
So, okay, I will actually give you, because I figured this would come up, infant mortality, right? I agree that the averages were way down a lot by infant mortality. And I'd actually say that when we look at that, what we're really seeing is the distributional curve has been moving up over the last several centuries. Whereas you would see, you would see there would be people that live to 70, right? But the vast majority would be bogged down by that very bottom percent, where either women are dying in childbirth, the children are dying before they get to 4 years old, etc. Right? It would be that infant mortality that would be awful. But in general, we have a sense of like if you lived out of infancy, if you lived to a certain age, you'd probably live a longer life, right?
Right.
But even then, I'd say, on average now we're living longer despite that, right? Like, even if we account for that, we're probably still living longer. We have more people who are getting to those older ages, based on like relative to population size than was the case back in the day.
I don't know, because our population, our average life expectancy is going down, especially in the United States.
I mean, sure, it's dropped somewhat, right? But I think
it's been on a steady decline for a few years, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think it's been on a steady decline for. Okay.
From what I've seen. So, but let's say I even give you that, right? And let's say we exclude infant mortality from our analysis. I still think we'd see the distributional curve far higher in our current society than it ever was in these older ones. And I think things like even understanding like disinfecting medical tools, things like that. Are major steps, crucial steps in allowing people to live longer than was the case back in the day.
Yeah.
Now let's say I gave you let's say we accepted still all the medical knowledge we have today, and we still were trying to implement a monarchical society because it's more stable in a sense. I don't see the way to get there would be once again, I don't see it being possible to have educated populations with living under an unjustifiable system, right?
We have uneducated population right now living under an unjustified system, arguably.
But here's the thing. I think we all generally agree. Now, maybe I think you clearly disagree, right? Most of us would rather live under a system where the justification comes from the people themselves in a democratic system, rather than the justification comes from an empirically unprovable God, you tried to argue for a second with the other guy about, if God is empirically proven. He's not, but, an empirically unproven God who gave one random family, just happened to be this one random family, the ordained, the divine right of kings, right? To me, it's like, in that type of system, if it were me, if it were anyone who I know who's around me who were to be like, would they willingly just be like, yeah, this has to be true. This is based on everything we know epistemologically, et cetera. This is clearly the right way things should be going. Like, I don't believe people would think that.
Well, I mean, that's no offense, but I mean, I could literally just make a counter argument to say I think that people would think that. Sure. So it's not really an argument. And I would also add this too. I would add this in too, that I'm not an empiricist. I don't think that empirically is the only way to prove things. I think that observation, I think that life experience, I think that logic, philosophy, those things can prove truth as well. I think that you are at a disadvantage if you're an empiricist, but I get why people like it. I do. My dad is a big empiricist, by the way. I mean, he's the one that, I grew up always learning, hey, make sure you know your studies, make sure you know your data. So that way, if you're ever, you're having it, what the hell you're talking about. Cause that was his worldview. Like, have the data, have the research, do the study, have the empirical evidence before you make an argument. My dad is a big empiricist. And then as I grew older, I realized that, wow, empirical evidence isn't all there is.
Sure. And so let's say I grant you, like, we can a priori figure out, like, what it's, some things are true or not, right? I don't think there's a single argument you can make that I think will be convincing enough to convince me of God. Like, be it the ontological argument or, any, like, prime mover argument or anything like that. There's nothing you could possibly give me that would, supersede what I currently believe.
Fair enough.
So I think that's truth. To be fair, we do live in a Christian society, right? I'd argue a lot of that's because, culture is dominant.
I don't think so. Right? We do not live in a Christian society.
I mean, 80% of people are religious. Let's say a religious society. I'll broaden it to, it's a monotheistic society of some kind, but majority of people are religious. Atheists are the minority, right? Do you agree to that or no?
I think not. Well, I think it's a little complicated. I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole. I would just say that most people, this would be my response, just really quick. And then I got a couple other people that want to join, and you can have the last statement.
I gotta hop out anyways.
Cool. So, I would just say that people claim they believe in God, but they don't. So I would argue that there's probably more atheists. I know it sounds kind of judgmental for me, but I'm just judging by the fruits, judging by their actions. And there's nothing wrong for people to, people do this all the time. Are you you judge somebody by their actions and what they say? So are they actually practicing what they preach? Or are they just preaching and not practicing anything? And I feel like the 80% who claim to be something don't actually believe that something. Most of them don't. So I would argue that we actually live in a more, I would say, I don't want to say atheistic because I don't even believe in atheism, but I would say satanic.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to make, I guess, one last point, if that's cool.
Yeah, it's fair. Go ahead. Nope.
It's to go back to where, me saying people wouldn't believe in that society, and you saying because I didn't provide any, like, positive proof for it, your counter-argument was essentially, I say that people would, right? I think you remember that point.
Yeah, well, I was just saying that that was the argument you made, and so I just did the same one back.
Okay. So my argument is to flesh it out a little bit more. There's this thing called modernization theory that's been, a very big force for the last 60 years in political science. And I'd argue that based on modernization theory, the idea is that as like as GDP or as income rises and education rises, people are more prone to push towards a democratic society. And so I think in the case of once again, education and wealth, no one's just going to, accept your system, lying down essentially. So,
yeah. Well, I guess maybe we'll find out, but hey man, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. All right. You have a good one.
You too, man. All right. Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. So I'm going to kick you out. And then if you want to come back in, feel free to come back in. I'll give you a couple minutes. I actually will be right back. I see there's somebody else in the queue. The Turk, if homeboy doesn't come back in, by the time I get back, I'll let you in. So give me 1 second. I don't know, but you can maybe get another pencil one and another adapter. I don't know. I'll look.
Yeah, I think you want to give yourself a little, just from here to 6 feet.
Okay.
Manual. Just think about it. So that it's going to get rigid, and if you have at least 30 feet, 35 feet, so you
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. All right, the Turk. It looks like you're in. Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm not bad, bro. I'm not bad.
Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch up on surveillance state. Do you not think this sounds like pretty dystopian? Like living in a surveillance state where like everyone's like monitored at all times.
It could be.
Yeah, it's kind of my first question.
It could be.
Yeah, bro, to be honest, because here's the thing, like my family are from Egypt, and it's kind of the case in Egypt, like more than anything, yeah, George Orwell, 1984, but yeah, so yeah, my family are from Egypt, from Egypt, and it's almost so like everyone's monitored over there, the internet's limited, and any type of, political dissidents that are monitored online, that kind of oppose the government, they get arrested. So I feel like with a state that's completely monitored and everyone's, under watch, it could become very problematic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it could be too. I never said that it would be perfect. I never said that if it,
No, I wasn't implying that, man. But what do you think the benefits of it would be then in this case?
Yeah, so I think ideally, and now this is ideally. This is my argument is what it could be, not what it will be. None of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm totally with you, guys. I've probably read more books than most people that are telling me I haven't read in here. Anyway, I've read 1984. I've read Brave New World. I've read The Circle. I've read a lot of Chinese history. How they used to surveil their people back in the day, how they're surveilling people today. I know about the United States Patriot Act. I get all this stuff, guys. But yeah, so this is how it could be. It could actually reduce crime. It would promote, ideally, honesty within the community, within the society as a whole, because you would have to be honest in your actions. If you try to lie, there could be people to call you out on that lie. If you have maybe evil thoughts. Those evil thoughts could be monitored. So, it would force you into a better life, I would say, almost. No policy is great to you. Right. So that's what I would say. Like obviously it's not going to be perfect. Obviously it can be corrupt, but that's what I would say to that.
Yeah. No, it's a reasonable response. I can kind of see the pros that could come with this. It's just the assumption that the people that would, kind of govern it wouldn't be corrupted and, use it to do more bad than good. So yeah, I think it could go either way.
Yeah,
it could
for
either
sure.
be really great or, really bad.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, the Great Reset, right? Is this what the World Economic Forum discussed, after COVID-19?
Part of it. So I don't want to explain it all over again. I think people think that I don't know what it is, and that's why they're asking if I'm pro it. But I do believe that there should be a reset. I do believe that there will be a reset because our economic system is failing, and that's why we are talking about a great reset.
And what do you think this would entail with a type of great reset?
Yeah, so my great reset would be community-based living, sound money, and a more godly existence. So we can have our own great resets, like this is the other thing I'm trying to promote with this idea that I'm pro great reset.
Yeah.
That you don't have to succumb to their reset. Don't worry about what they're doing. What are you going to do? What's your reset going to be in your life? You let's say you have a bad life right now and you're at rock bottom. What's going to be your reset? What's going to be your great reset?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it is good to start from scratch, to kind of, start from the bottom and make your way back up.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when a bone breaks, and if it doesn't grow back in the right way, it's going to have to be broke again, right? It's kind of the same thing, right?
Right.
So this guy said, how do you define community-based living?
Yeah, good question. So I would say multi-generational families, like households, and area and villages and communities where you are focused on the service and products that you can provide to your people, as opposed to worrying about riches and debt and vanity. Being an actual valuable member in your society, like let's say you're a carpenter. Well, that's very valuable in society. That's going to be a very valuable member in your community. And let's say in that community there's a farmer. Well, guess what? If you can help them build some shit, they can help you get some eggs. You don't have to really worry about food. That kind of stuff. And that doesn't mean that I'm talking about a kumbaya bartering system. Obviously, humanity's real, and there will be some disputes. There will still have to be some kind of money, but that money would ideally be better than the current worthless United States dollar that we have.
Yeah. I think there's such a built-up stigma around, quote-unquote great reset, these conspiracy theorists. That's why it gets such a bad rap, right? People are chronically online. They are exposed to so many different things that it can stir up people, a lot of fear-mongering. I guess, but obviously, like the World Economic Forum have discussed many things and how we're going to, the future of our world, how we're going to progress, the blockchain, certain other things. So we're definitely heading in a very, interesting direction.
Yeah, we are for sure. And I have nothing against blockchain technology. I have nothing against digital currency. If you have anything against digital currency, then please stop using the United States dollar, because the United States dollar is a digital currency primarily. But there is obviously issues with it, but I don't know. I think that it's just more of a fear tactic to get people afraid of what's to come, as opposed to focusing on what you're going to do, because they've had many plans. This is the thing that they don't understand. A lot of these quote unquote truthers, there have been many of white papers where they've talked about things that they wanted to accomplish by the year 2000, what they wanted to accomplish in 2010 and 1970. And, there's a lot of things that have failed. So just because they're planning this doesn't mean it's going to come into fruition.
Yeah, bro. Well, I kind of asked you everything I wanted to speak about, but I'll let someone else come up. And if you've got any different topics later, then I'll be free to come up again. But yeah, take care, man.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Sure.
Hey, how's it going? I can't hear you. All right. Sorry, man. I don't know what's going on, but I can't hear you. Let me try to mute you and then unmute you. All right. So that's going to be it for me today. Then I'm going to do a stream again for the Ohio news. It's going to be focused on Ohio news here in about 40 minutes. So if you're interested in that, MOT_Ohio, MOT media on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, MOT Today 1 here, MOT News, all that good stuff. Not Christians, people that don't take responsibility, believe in thank you, debt forgiveness. Lisa, if you are a Christian, just know that the Bible literally tells you to forgive your debtors, and the God of the Bible literally says to forgive debts, literally, to people who are the lenders of money and slaves as well. So, but anyway, all right, guys, much love, peace.